All right, so let's start some actual problems. 21 feet equals how many millimeters? So what I'm going to do, let me start with saying file, new, don't save, a nice clean slate. Excuse me. 21 feet equals how many millimeters? All right. This really sucks. I really wish I had a whiteboard and you in front of me. Anyway, how are we going to approach that problem? It's using multiple types of conversions. So let's start with a simpler one to just step up really quickly. And I'm going to say 4 inches equals how many millimeters? Okay. 4 inches equals how many millimeters? And if I go back, if I go back to this document and I look for something that has inches and millimeters in the same conversion, if possible. And sure enough, I have it. 1 inch equals 25.4 millimeters. So I know that 1 inch equals, oh, this is horrible. I need to be in the dang classroom, equals 25.4 millimeters. That means that 1 inch over 25.4 millimeters equals 1, right? I already said that before. And also 25.4 millimeters over 1 inch equals 1. It doesn't matter which one is on top or bottom. They both equal 1. Now, where it does matter is paying attention to the units. So where do I start? I start with 4 inches. And I'm going to write it over 1. If you've had math before that you remember this, anything over 1 is just itself. I just like it because it makes things visually easier for me. I want to get rid of this inches and end up with millimeters. How do I get rid of inches and end up with millimeters? Well, if I've got inches in the top to start with, I need inches in the bottom to get rid of it. So this is the one that is going to get me across the finish line. 25.4 millimeters over 1 inch. And now my inches will cancel because I have inches in the top and inches in the bottom. So inches cancel, and what am I left with? Millimeters. That's it. I'm done. Well, I'm almost done, except for the part where I plug it into the calculator. And I plug in my 25.4 times, light's not good in here, equals 101.6. So 4 inches is the same as 101.6 millimeters. Done. That's how we do these problems called conversion factors. Why is it a factor? Because a factor is something you're multiplying by. I'm just multiplying by a fancy version of 1. I'm paying attention to the units so that the units cancel and I'm left with just the units I want. Millimeters in this case. What about this one? Let's go back to the 21 feet equals how many millimeters? Do I have anything that is feet to millimeters? No. I've got feet to meters. I've got inches to centimeters. I've got a number of different things, but I don't have any feet to millimeters. So how do I do it? You multiply by 1 2 or 3 times until you get the answer. And so there are some things you need to know. So for example, I start this problem exactly the way I always do, 21 feet over 1. I put everything over 1 in these problems just because it helps with my organization. Do you know how many inches are in a foot? I hope so. For this class, take notes. You need to know on a test that there are 12 inches in a foot. I could ask you that. Or I could give you a problem like this where you need to know it. There's 12 inches in a foot. There's 3 feet in a yard. You might need that. There's 16 ounces in a pound. 16 ounces in a pound. You might need that. There's 4 quarts in a gallon. You might need that. Everything else I think I would give you, like 5,280 feet in a mile. I'm not going to ask you to do that. All right. So here, I know that there is 12 inches in a foot. Why did I write the inches on top and the feet on the bottom? Because I'm paying attention to units. The feet cancel. So now I've got inches. I don't care about the numbers. To heck with the numbers. Ignore it. And so I now have inches. But I need millimeters. So what's next? I have 1 inch is the same as 25.4 millimeters. Again, have I done any math on this one yet? No. All I've done is write down things I know. I write down the number that I'm trying to start with. I write down something that's going to get rid of my feet and get me closer to the answer. In this case, I went from feet to inches. Now I got to go from inches to millimeters. Done. I'm done. Now it's just a matter of plugging it into the calculator. So we go to the calculator. And we have, clear, 21 times 12 times 25.4, 6,400.8. So that leads me to another issue, 6,400.8. And I'm not going to give you any issues like this on a test. But there's something called significant figures. If I measured something in feet, 21 feet, am I going to have measured it accurately enough that I know when I convert that, I am going to give an answer within 1/10 of a millimeter? You know how big millimeters are. Hell, my thumbnail is almost a millimeter thick. Well, maybe my toenail. But it's small, 1/10. I'm 8/10 of a millimeter. There's no way in hell that if I'm measuring feet, I am going to be that accurate. And if I was that accurate, I might say 21.000 feet. Do those zeros do any good? Yeah, they actually do. If I measure 21 feet, that tells me I measured it plus or minus to the nearest foot. If I measure 21.0 feet, I'm still saying 21 feet, but 21.0 feet tells me I measured it to the nearest tenth of a foot, or about an inch. An inch is a twelfth of a foot, close. If I have 21.00, that tells me I measured it to the nearest hundredth of a foot, and 000 tells me I measured it to the nearest thousandth of a foot. And if I look at this, there's how many numbers? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 digits in this number. 5 significant figures, they're called in science, which means my answer should be accurate to 5 significant figures. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the answer. So that's exactly the answer I would give if I had 21.000 feet and my starting point. But since I have only 2,100 feet, I don't care. It's just 6,400. That's my millimeters. That's my final answer. Don't forget the millimeter. God, I hate this pen. I'm going to have to get used to it. 6,400 millimeters is the answer. If you gave me 6,400.8, I'm not going to mark you wrong. Now, what if your brain didn't work this way? What if you think in a slightly different way? So you're starting with 21 feet. And you look at this and you say, well, feet to meters, there's 3.28 feet per meter. Fine. There's 3.28 feet per meter. Got that right off that table. Again, sorry about the pen. It's really hard to do this. So now I'm at meters. And I know that there are 1,000 millimeters in a meter. Is this going to give me any different answer? Better not. .21 feet divided by 3.28 times 1,000. Now this one is 6,402.4 blah, 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 blah. But I only have 2 significant figures. What if I round it off to 2 significant figures? That's just 6,400. It's the same answer within rounding error. Now, because I grossly rounded off these numbers here, there could be 2 numbers that you come off that round differently. So I could have ended up with, let's say my answer in one problem is 13.69, and another way I calculated is 13.21. Well, 13.69 rounds to 14, 13.21 rounds to 13. Hey, I got 13 one time and 14 the other time, depending on how I did it. Don't worry, the problem is because the conversion factors you used were smaller than the significant figures in your problem. Again, you should always use at least 2 more significant figures than you need for the problem. Will I mark you wrong if you don't understand significant figures, you don't want to deal with them, and you just gave me, 6402.44? I'm not going to mark you wrong, even though there's no way 6402.44 is accurately indicating the accuracy of my measurement. I didn't measure 21 feet to the accuracy of 1/100th of a millimeter. Okay. And, maybe I did a even different way. Again, just showing you there it doesn't matter how your brain thinks about this stuff. Where'd my pen? I don't know. The Wacom isn't working again. 21 feet. And I know that there's 12 inches in a foot. And I can look at the table, and maybe the thing that caught your eye is there's 0.39 inches in a foot. Excuse me, inches in a centimeter. I'm sorry, 0.39 inches in a centimeter. And I know that there are 10 millimeters in a centimeter. Now, am I worried about math yet? No, this is not math. This is an organizational problem. I'm paying attention. My feet cancel, my inches cancel, my centimeters cancel, and I'm left with millimeters. Everything in the top gets multiplied. Everything in the bottom, a denominator, gets divided. And as long as I organize it correctly, it's just plug it in, and it doesn't even matter the order that I plug it in. What is 21 times 12 divided by 0.39 times 10? In this case, 6,461. This 0.39 is not only grossly rounded off, but it's only two significant figures. So there's going to be a little slop there. Is that still a similar number? Yeah, 6,400-ish millimeters. But if I round that off, it's going to be 65, isn't it? Again, that's because I'm having you practice these with numbers from this sample table with way too rounded off numbers. So there is going to be some rounding error. But again, it's only practice. If you're really doing this for the real world, you need better conversion factors. And they're easy to look up. So that is conversion factors, just multiplying by 1. And I'm going to do one more real quick, and then we'll take a break. Let's say I have 40 acres equals how many hectares? All right. 40 acres. And I want to convert this to hectares. What do? I multiply times, or excuse me, I write it over 1, and then I multiply times some version of 1. And it doesn't matter which one of these I use. At the lower half of this table, I can use acres equals hectares or hectares equals acres. I don't care which one. They'll both give you the same number within rounding error. So 1 hectare is 2.47 acres. Let's use this one. 1 hectare is 2.47 acres. And that's all I need to do. I've gone from acres. Acres are in the bottom and the top. So acres cancel because I have 1 in the bottom, 1 in the top, and I'm left with hectares. Now, if that cross canceling of units doesn't make sense to you, you can utilize the Panther Learning Lab or talk to your math teacher if you have math, or, we have a tutor for this class as well. If you haven't heard about it yet, you will. And so what is the answer to this problem? 40 times, 1, 40 divided by 2.47. It's in the bottom, so I divide. Equals, and the answer is 16 because I have only two significant figures, so the answer is 16. And really, I don't know, is that 40 like to the nearest 10 acres? I hope not. But when it ends in a zero, you're not 100% sure what the significant figures are. But don't worry about that. If anybody's interested to learn more about significant figures, let me know. We can have a Zoom meeting about it. But those are conversion equations. The only thing I want to point out here is that I had some that just may have come out of thin air. 10 millimeters equals 1 centimeter. Where the hell did that come from? And I also had 1,000 millimeters equals 1 meter. Where the hell did that come from? That didn't come from my table. That came from here, and maybe from your own personal experience. A centimeter is 1/100th of a meter, and a millimeter is 1,000th of a meter. Well, if a centimeter is 1/100th, 1,000th is milli. They're different by a factor of 10, right? So there must be 10 millimeters in a centimeter. Or a millimeter, what does it mean? It literally means 1/1000th of a meter. So if a millimeter is 1/1000th of a meter, that means that there are 1,000 millimeters in a meter. So you need to know how to use this table. Again, if that makes sense, I don't want to go into some of the stuff that maybe is too basic for some of you, because maybe you've had enough experience and practice. But if you haven't had the experience and practice, and the idea that 10 millimeters are a centimeter, or 1,000 millimeters are the same as a meter, you might need to either talk with me, talk with our tutoring center, Panther Learning Lab, whatever. You might need to get some additional practice. But there's numerous practice problems, not only in the document I just showed you. There's 11 problems there, but there's also 2 more documents with, I think, 20 practice problems each. So another 40 problems, I believe, where you could download these and practice some more. So let's take a short break, and then I'll be right back to talk about the other 2 kinds of conversions.